Imagine paying the ultimate aesthetic tax.
Oh, yeah.
Like, picture yourself sitting in the stands season after season. You're watching your absolute favorite team play the most beautiful, free-flowing, technically perfect football imaginable.
Right. The dream.
Exactly. They pass the ball like it's tied to a string.
Yeah.
They weave through defenders. They orchestrate these sweeping balletic movements across the pitch that are just an absolute joy to behold.
But there's a catch.
A massive catch.
Yeah.
For 2 decades, despite all that breathtaking beauty and the critical acclaim, you watch them win 0 league titles.
It's brutal.
It is a remarkably heavy price to pay
Yeah.
just for entertainment, isn't it? So welcome to today's Deep Dive. Today is Thursday, March 5, 2026, and we are looking at a massive, really fundamental evolution in elite European football.
A complete paradigm shift.
Yeah, we are tracking a complete shift away from the idealistic, possession-obsessed era of the past, right into a gritty, calculated new era defined by something called functional dominance and the absolute mastery of the dark arts.
It's fascinating stuff.
We've got an incredible stack of material to go through today. It spans from Diego Simeone's brutally effective 2020-21 Atletico Madrid title winners all the way to the absolute juggernaut that is Mikel Arteta's 2025-26 Arsenal team. Plus, we have a ton of league-wide tactical data to get into. Okay, let's unpack this.
It's great to dive into this with you today. And as you just mapped out for us, the stage is really set here. Our mission for this deep dive is to look closely at the underlying data and the specific tactical shifts on the pitch.
Yeah.
We want to understand not just what strategies are winning titles today, but exactly why that old pursuit of aesthetic perfection has been entirely replaced. The reality of the modern game is that elite teams are no longer trying to paint a masterpiece.
No, not at all.
Instead, they are actively weaponizing the marginal gain. We're going to explore how seemingly minor details like a 30-second delay on a corner kick or the psychological profile of a center back can completely dismantle an opponent's entire game plan.
I really love that phrase, weaponizing the marginal gain. Let's actually start with this concept of the aesthetic tax because it perfectly frames the dramatic shift we are seeing, especially when you look at a club like Arsenal.
Definitely.
For years, under the late era of Arsene Wenger, Arsenal was world famous for Wenger ball.
Beautiful to watch.
Oh, highly technical, incredibly entertaining. But the squad was often physically smaller and, frankly, a bit naive defensively.
Yeah, they were.
They played beautiful football, but it left them incredibly vulnerable to teams that were willing to just bully them off the park. Now, fast forward to Mikel Arteta's current 2025-26 squad, and it is a completely different universe.
Night and day.
This team is massive. They are strong, physically imposing, and they are ruthlessly pragmatic.
Yeah.
So have they simply sacrificed the beautiful game for brutal efficiency?
I mean, that is the defining tension of modern tactical theory right there. To truly understand this shift, we actually have to look outside of England and go back a few years to Spain. Diego Simeone's transformation of Atletico Madrid really serves as the foundational blueprint for this modern pragmatism. Simeone's core philosophy is incredibly straightforward in theory, but agonizing to execute in practice.
Which is?
A team that concedes fewer goals simply wins more games. He fundamentally did not care about dominating possession in the opponent's half. He cared about structural perfection.
I was looking at the defensive numbers for that 2020-21 Atletico title run, and they're terrifying.
You really are.
They kept 10 clean sheets in their first 17 games alone. That is an absurd level of defensive lockdown. But how did Simeone actually pull that off tactically on the pitch?
It was all built on a fiercely rigid low block, usually deploying a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2 formation. You had Jan Oblak operating as a literal wall in goal.
Right.
And in front of him, Simeone deployed massive center backs, guys like Stefan Savic and Felipe, who just dominated the airspace, winning virtually every aerial duel that came into the box.
And clearing everything.
Exactly. And while the center was a fortress, fullbacks like Kieran Trippier and Renan Lodi were tasked with providing the sole attacking width for the entire team. But what made that Atletico system so unique wasn't just that they sat deep.
What was it?
It was their pressing triggers. They used a wolf pack pressing mentality.
So they weren't just passively sitting back and absorbing pressure for 90 minutes.
Not at all. They would willingly invite the opponent to hold the ball in non-threatening wide areas. But the moment a specific trigger was hit, maybe a slightly heavy touch from a midfielder or a pass played backwards,
A jump on.
the team would swarm the ball carrier like a wolf pack. It was a strategy built on low-risk, high-reward moments of intense pressure. They conserve their energy by not pressing constantly, choosing their moments with surgical precision to force high-value turnovers.
Which brings us to another huge tactical shift that both Simeone and Arteta have heavily leaned into, the return of the classic number 9. Because for a while there, the tactical zeitgeist was entirely obsessed with the false 9, right? Midfielders dropping deep, teams playing without a true physical striker.
The Guardiola influence.
Right. But Atletico relied heavily on a traditional, robust striker in Luis Suarez to bypass those modern high presses with direct vertical play.
A brilliant move.
And now we see modern Arsenal doing the exact same thing with Victor Gyökeres. He's described as a mid-block breaker, meaning he doesn't just wait in the penalty box for a cross. His physical runs actively destroy the opponent's midfield defensive lines because they are so terrified of his presence.
That poses a massive dilemma for the opposition. When you have a player with the physical profile of Gyökeres or Suarez before him, it completely scrambles a defense's decision-making.
How so?
If the opposing center backs press high up the pitch, they risk being exposed by a single direct ball over the top to a powerful striker who will beat them in a foot race.
Right, they get burned.
But if they drop deep to manage that threat, they concede the entire midfield territory to the attacking team. It essentially breaks the opponent's defensive structure before the ball is even played.
And speaking of defensive structures, let's look at the absolute machine that Arsenal has built this season. The defensive stats for their 2025-26 campaign are almost hard to comprehend.
They're historic.
In their opening 11 games, they conceded just 5 goals. But wait, conceding only 5 goals in 11 games, is that sustainable defensive brilliance? Or have they just had an incredibly lucky run of fixtures? Because sometimes teams just run hot and goalkeepers stand on their heads.
It's a fair question, but the underlying data proves it's entirely structural. The metric that confirms this is their expected goals conceded per shot, which is sitting at an absolutely absurd 0.08.
Wow. So their XG conceded per shot is 0.08. That means they aren't just stopping shots, they are actively forcing teams to take the lowest percentage, most desperate shots imaginable.
Exactly.
Less than an 8% chance of going in on average.
Precisely. It is a phenomenal achievement in defensive organization, and it stems directly from the physical defend-first personnel they have assembled at the back. We are looking at a backline featuring William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhães, Ricardo Calafiori, and Jurrien Timber.
Just a massive wall.
But beyond their sheer physical attributes, there is a profound psychological shift happening here. This is a defensive unit that celebrates successful tackles, blocks, and clearances with the same ferocity and passion that strikers usually reserve for celebrating goals.
You see them high-fiving after a goal kick.
They take immense pride in the dark art of defending. If we connect this to the bigger picture, what Arsenal is doing is executing a concept known as organized unpredictability.
Organized unpredictability. It sounds like an oxymoron. How does that actually function during a match?
Out of possession, they utilize a highly rigid 4-4-2 block. Their primary directive is to maintain central compactness, which deliberately forces opponents out wide toward the touchlines.
Using the sideline as a defender.
Exactly. The touchline essentially acts as an extra defender, limiting the opponent's passing angles. And sitting right in front of that defensive line, you have Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice acting as a double pivot shield.
The ultimate enforcers.
Think of them as 2 elite bouncers standing outside the VIP section. They are the ultimate protectors, breaking up play before it ever reaches the center backs. But they also possess the elite technical quality to instantly launch a counterattack the second the ball is won.
It's fascinating because when you look at the history of the Premier League, you definitely see echoes of other pragmatic champions who utilize similar concepts. There's a direct lineage between this Arsenal team and Jose Mourinho's 2014-15 Chelsea side.
Oh, absolutely.
They would secure a narrow lead and then completely shut the game down. They had this impenetrable meat wall of John Terry and Gary Cahill just standing in the penalty area, heading away, cross after cross, to protect those 1-0 leads.
Mourinho understood fundamentally that once you have the advantage on the scoreboard, aesthetics no longer matter. Game management does. You don't get bonus points for artistic merit.
And another incredible parallel is Claudio Ranieri's 2015-16 Leicester City. Let's actually sit with that Leicester team for a second, because that season completely shattered the illusion that you need the ball to win a title.
It broke all the established rules.
They famously won the league with an average of just 46% possession and the lowest passing accuracy in the entire division. How does a team win the toughest league in the world when they actively avoid holding onto the ball.
By mastering what tactical analysts call counter-dynamism, Leicester didn't want to dictate the play with the ball. They wanted to dictate the space without it.
Right.
They allowed opponents to have sterile possession in harmless areas, waiting patiently for the opponent to overcommit or make a mistake, and then punishing them instantly with blinding pace on the counterattack. They proved that controlling the space is far more lethal than controlling the ball.
Which is exactly what we are seeing now, but evolved to a terrifying new degree. And this brings us to what might be the biggest tactical cheat code in the modern game right now.
The dead balls.
The set-piece revolution. Get ready for this data because it is staggering. Across the entire Premier League, non-penalty set-piece goals have surged from 20.6% of all goals in the 24-25 season to an incredible 25.4% this season.
Over a quarter of all goals.
Over 1 in 4. And it gets crazier. Teams like Newcastle are now relying on set pieces for 50% of their total goals if you include penalties. It's a fundamental shift in how football matches are won.
It is a seismic shift in the sport's tactical landscape. And at the absolute epicenter of this revolution is Nicolas Jover, Arsenal's highly specialized set-piece coach. Arteta poached him from Manchester City back in 2021, and the impact has been transformative.
He's a genius.
He has essentially turned Arsenal into the undisputed kings of the corner kick. To put it in perspective, Arsenal scored 16 goals from corners in the 23-24 season, which tied an all-time Premier League record. And early in this current 25-26 season, a massive 50% of their goals were originating directly from set pieces. Jover treats these dead ball situations not as random roll-of-the-dice chances, but as highly orchestrated, high-probability offensive plays.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the mechanics of these routines are wild when you break them down. It's less of a football formation and more of a nightclub bouncer convention.
It really is.
You've got Saliba, Gabriel, Kai Havertz, Gyökeres, and Rice. They all congregate right in what analysts call the chaos zone, situated directly between the penalty spot and the 6-yard line,
creating massive traffic.
And while those giants are causing absolute mayhem, you have players like Ben White or Gabriel Jesus executing this highly controversial tactic called goalkeeper screening.
The dark arts.
Exactly. They basically stand their ground, subtly blocking the keeper's path or pinning them directly on their goal line so they physically cannot come out to catch the cross.
It is borderline brilliant in its aggression, pushing the absolute limits of the rulebook. And it all relies heavily on the delivery. You have Bukayo Saka whipping in these absolutely lethal in-swinging corners. Because the goalkeeper is pinned and the chaos zone is flooded with giant targets, the defense is completely paralyzed.
They just freeze.
Furthermore, Arsenal employs a secondary layer to this called dead ball pressing. Players like Martin Odegaard and Declan Rice hover just outside the penalty box. The moment the ball is cleared by a desperate defender, they immediately press to win it back, locking the opposition deep in their own half.
Suffocating them.
It ensures that even if the corner doesn't result in a goal, it sustains relentless pressure.
It's like watching a synchronized military operation. But all of this extreme tactical pragmatism, the physical defending, the intense set-piece reliance has led to a massive league-wide controversy. The dominant narrative right now is that Arsenal are the masters of the dark arts.
It's all anyone is talking about.
Let's talk about the match that literally just happened yesterday, March 4, 2026. Arsenal traveled to play Brighton and squeezed out a 1-0 win thanks to an early Saka goal. After the match, Brighton's manager, Fabian Herzler, was absolutely furious in his press conference.
He was seething.
He accused Arsenal of making their own rules, destroying the rhythm of the game, and practicing what he called anti-football. Now, it's important to state up front for everyone listening, we aren't taking a side here.
No, I'm not.
We're not here to declare this the death of the beautiful game, nor are we calling it infallible genius. We are purely looking at the tactical reality and the explosive reactions to it.
And Herzler's immense frustration was heavily fueled by a viral statistic that Opta released immediately after the match concluded. The data showed that Arsenal took a cumulative total of 30 minutes and 51 seconds just to restart play from dead ball situations against Brighton.
30 minutes.
The ball was actually in play for only 53 minutes and 22 seconds of the entire match. When a team actively drains a full third of a 90-minute game simply setting up free kicks, goal kicks, and corners, you can certainly understand the anger radiating from the opposing bench and their supporters.
Okay, but look, time wasting isn't exactly a new phenomenon in football. Why is the reaction so intensely hostile this time around? Is it just sour grapes from Brighton after a tough loss, or is there something fundamentally different about how Arsenal's doing it?
This raises an important question. Are Arsenal actually ruining the pace of the modern game across the board, or is this a textbook case of recency bias driven by a few highly visible high-stakes matches?
What does the data say?
When we look at objective data, specifically the 365 scores actual playtime metric for the entire season, a very different reality emerges. Across the league, Arsenal actually ranks 17th for time wasting.
Wait, really?
Yes, they average 20 minutes and 56 seconds of dead time per match. To put that in context, Sunderland is the absolute worst defender in the league, draining 24 minutes and 36 seconds per game. So, statistically speaking, Arsenal is actually one of the teams keeping the ball in play the most overall.
That is such a wild contradiction. How can they be 17th in overall time wasting for the season, yet pull off a 30-minute delay masterclass against a team like Brighton?
It comes down to what tactical analysts are calling their targeted delay strategy. Arsenal doesn't just waste time randomly or aimlessly throughout the season. They are highly forensic about it.
So they pick their moments.
Exactly. They specifically drain the clock on set pieces. On average, they spend 4 minutes and 18 seconds per match solely setting up their corners. They use this dead time to execute an on-pitch huddle.
Ah, I've seen that.
It disrupts the opposition's momentum, gives Arsenal's big men crucial time to recover their aerobic capacity, and allows Nicolas Jover to signal the exact highly choreographed routine from the touchline.
So it's not just a cynical ploy to run out the clock. It's a calculated reset.
It is a tactical weapon deployed specifically against fast-paced, high-rhythm teams like Brighton. When you play an opponent that thrives on momentum, quick transitions, and speed, the most effective way to neutralize them is to break the game into disjointed, frustrating fragments.
Throw them completely off the rhythm.
Arsenal is actively manipulating the tempo to suit their physical advantages. The critics view it as cynical anti-football, while proponents view it as peak professional game management. Regardless of the aesthetic debate, it is a highly calculated strategy that is undeniably contributing to their dominant position at the top of the table.
So what does this all mean? If you take a step back and look at the whole picture we've painted today, it's clear that the modern elite game has completely moved on from the days of idealistic, slow possession tacticians trying to walk the ball into the net.
The game has changed.
The formula for winning today's Premier League is about hyperflexibility. It's about lightning-fast transitions. It's about having a robust, bruising number 9 up top who can break a mid-block. And most importantly, it's about absolute mastery of the margins.
Yes, the margins are everything.
Whether you are building a brutal, impenetrable low block or taking 30 seconds to orchestrate the perfect corner delay, the champions of this era are the ones willing to do whatever it takes, however ugly it might look to the purists, to secure the 3 points.
It's a fascinating evolution, and it leaves us with the final provocative thought to consider as we watch the rest of this season unfold. As the Premier League rapidly shifts into this gritty era where highly orchestrated set-piece routines and strictly managed dead ball delays dictate the title race, will the future of European football coaching start to look less like traditional soccer management and more like the NFL?
That's an interesting comparison.
With the overwhelming success of specialized coaches like Nicolas Jover, could we soon see teams employing dedicated special teams coordinators whose sole job is to run highly regimented American football-style plays that fundamentally alter the DNA of the global game forever? It's entirely possible that the fluid, continuous game we grew up with is transforming into a series of highly engineered set plays.
An NFL-style special teams coordinator in the Premier League. That completely changes how you watch a match. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope this look into the tactical shifts and the margins of the modern game gave you a fresh perspective.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. Keep looking beneath the surface of the stats, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.